Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk about a topic that excites me a lot. It's how do you think about not just running your e-commerce business day to day, but what's the big picture? And we're going to talk about something called exit planning from day one in just a bit. But let me first tell you a little bit about my background and why I'm here and so excited to talk about the topic. So I got involved in the Amazon e-commerce space actually in 2013 after completing my first exit of a software company 10 years before that. And what I found when I came into the industry is that a lot of people were running businesses, doing a great job of growing them and dealing with all of the challenges, but didn't really understand the big picture that you're not only looking to run your Amazon business, but at some point you're looking to exit that business as well. So for the last 10 years, I've been helping Amazon e-commerce entrepreneurs find a way to exit their businesses and achieve financial freedom. As of today, we've done more than $500 million in exits. We've helped dozens and dozens and dozens of sellers exit. And it really is something that you need to be focused on when you're thinking about exiting a business, not just from the end when you get to the end of the journey, but literally from the beginning. So let's get started. We're going to talk about exit planning from day one, and we're going to walk you through just a brief summary of some of the materials that are available in the exit ticket planning course that is provided by Northbound and Helium 10. Let's get started. Okay, so exit planning from day one, what does that really mean? The first thing is the why. Did you know that more than 50% of the money you're ever going to put in your pocket is going to come when you sell the business? I want to repeat that just to make sure that you understand it. More than half of the money that you get won't come from when you operate the business. It's going to come when you finally decide to exit the business. The following graph here is just an example, and we can fill this template out for your business as well. But the bulk of the money that you get won't come from historical earnings taken. On average, that might be 15 to 20%, or even the future earnings from today forward. It's going to be about 2/3 or maybe even 70 or 80% of the money that you ever get out of your business comes when you decide to sell. And there's a number of reasons for that. Everything from the fact that capital gains tax rates are lower than ordinary income tax rates. The other reason is that when you're growing an e-commerce business, as everybody knows, you're having to build up your inventory. So even though you're profitable, you're reinvesting that money back into the business time and time again. You're in effect growing an asset that at some point you're going to want to liquidate and get the money in what I call your me account, not staying in the business, but coming out to you individually. So what are the implications of this? For most of you that are listening to this, or as I've done dozens of presentations over the years in the industry, I'll say if more than half of the money comes when you exit the business, how many people here are spending more than 5% of your time on that exit strategy? And as you can probably imagine, if there's a room full of 200 people in attendance, less than 10% of hands go up. The simple fact is that we get distracted by the immediate, the urgent, and the frustrating, and we lose sight of the big picture. But when you think about it a little bit more deeply, it's actually kind of crazy. The thing that's going to get you the most money, you're spending the least amount of time planning. My hope is that by the content you'll hear today and by all of the great content that we put together in the exit ticket program, that we will change that dynamic for you and you'll start planning your exit from day one. Let's make it down a little bit easier though. When we talk about this thing called an exit, you might be wondering, well, what does that even mean? And can I really exit my business? And how do I exit for $1 million or more? And so I like to start with this particular slide and say, what does it take to sell a business in this example for $1.7 million? Now, as I like to say, $1.7 million is a lot of money in my house. I hope it is in yours. And I don't know that I want to live in a house where it's not. So we know that that's a significant amount of money, but let's break it down. You might be thinking, oh boy, that's a lot of money. I could never do that. Well, I'm here to walk you through what I call the 20-20-20-20 rule. And if you do that, you'll have a business worth $1.7 million. Let's get started. You have 20 products that you launch over a 3-year period or a 5-year period or a 7-year period, and each one of them is selling 20 units a day. So you have 20 products selling 20 units a day each. That's $400 units per day that you're selling on your website or on Amazon. And the average price of those products is $20. So you take the 400, multiply the 20, and you get to $8,000 per sales per day. And you want to target having a net business profitability of 20% profit on the products that you sell. So that means that you'd be profiting 8,000 times 0.2 or $1,600 profit per day. And if there's 30 days in an average month, that'll be $48,000 of profit per month, which means that on an average year over 12 months, you're going to have $576,000 of annual profit. Well, that's a wonderful thing to have achieve. But here's where it gets exciting. There's something called a multiple. For those of you that might be new to the space or might not be familiar with how businesses exit, there's something called a multiple times your trailing 12 months earnings. And if we take a multiple of even 3x, which is a typical multiple, lots of businesses that we help exit for higher multiples than that. But I wanted to be conservative. You actually get to take the $576,000, you multiply that times 3, and you have a business that's exitable for $1.7 million. So you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I could never exit a business for $1 or $2 million. But if you just put your nose to the grindstone and say, you know what, every month I'm going to launch a product or two, or every quarter I'm going to launch 3 or 4 products, you may have higher ticket products. You may sell more units per day, but even if you have 20 products that are relatively low price at $20 and relatively low price in terms of units per day, 20 units per day, that would lead you to a $1.7 million business. It's pretty exciting and pretty tangible when you put it in those contexts. So here's one of the action items. I'll be talking about a few action items today. You always want to start out with, what's my owner goal? What is my exit number that I want to achieve? And a great way to do that, and you'll have templates for all of this if you go to the exit ticket program, is to fill out how many products, how many units, what revenue and what profit do you want to achieve? And in effect, you'll design the exit ticket number that is right for you. So after you've decided what your owner goal is, then we need to dive in and say, how are we going to strategically get to that particular goal? In order to do that, you have to do something that I call know your numbers to know your value. Many people that come into this industry, or even if you've been in an industry for a while, you're focused on the marketing side of it. You're focused on the PPC side of it. You might be focused on keyword research using tools or different types of strategies. The one thing that you need to focus on is knowing your numbers in order to know what you're worth. And there's actually 6 levels of that. And we're not going to go into all of the details right now. But the way to think about it is that it builds like a pyramid. And the first thing that you have to do isn't even know your numbers. It's to know that your business is compliant with the rules of either Amazon or other government agencies, to know that you're mitigating the risk out of the business. And then after that, you have to implement something called accrual accounting, which simply means that you're going to record your profit and your loss, not on a cash basis, but you're going to match them up over time. And again, all of this is talked about in the longer course. Then you have to look at what your future is. How fast am I growing and what budget do I need? And then how much cash am I going to need in order to reach that particular goal? And then finally, you're going to do something called scenario analysis, where you're going to look at, do I, hit my minimum goals? Do I hit my maximum goals, or somewhere in between? And once you have your numbers here, you'll have an understanding, what's called valuation modeling. You'll actually have a range of outcomes of what your business is worth today and what it's worth tomorrow. One of the big problems that I find with people is they tend to think of exiting a business like a light switch. I'm either going to exit or I'm not. And the way that I like to think about it is we've all kind of seen those historical fundraisers, right? Where they have the thermometer and the goal is to get to $1 million raised and the temperature bar is down low at the beginning. And then as they raise money, it gets closer and closer. And then everybody gets excited and you reach the goal of the fundraising goal for whatever organization that you care about. Well, think of your business as exactly that same way. Today, your business, if it's profitable, if you're just getting started out, maybe not, but if you have a profitable business, you have something that has some level of value. Don't think of it as a light switch that you're either going to exit or you don't. Think of it as a long-term strategy to continue to raise your own personal thermometer to reach the valuation that you want to reach. And you won't be able to do that unless you spend some time focusing on knowing your numbers. But once you know your numbers, the next thing to do is to start to translate those numbers to what makes you valuable to a buyer, okay? Now, many people, when they hear a buyer, they think that a buyer is something kind of big and mysterious and confusing. The reality is that you work with buyers every day, and those buyers are the people that buy your products. And you put together something, let's just say that you're doing business on Amazon, you put together something called an Amazon product listing. And what you do there is you don't list why you want to sell the product, right? You list why the product is valuable to that particular buyer. It's a comfortable towel. It's very soft. It dries quickly. It's going to help you get do this benefit or that benefit. It's very comfortable. It's very portable, whatever it happens to be. Okay. It's the same thing with exiting your business, or as I like to say, your ultimate buyer is your ultimate customer. So what you're going to do is you're going to start focusing on presenting a business that's exciting and valuable, but not doing it just at a product level, but doing it at the overall business level. Okay, so let's talk about what makes you valuable to a buyer. The first thing is, over here, you need to have strong profit margins. Most buyers like to see businesses that are doing a minimum of 15% profit, or ideally 20% profit or more. The second thing that buyers like to see is they like to see that the business is growing. Nobody wants to buy something that's shrinking. They want to see something that's growing at least 20% Y over Y, which stands for year over year or more. And then the third thing they like to see is nobody likes to feel like they have all their eggs in one basket. So they like to see a business that's diversified. And that might be diversification across 10 or 20 products. It might be diversification across channel, where maybe you sell 10 products in the US and you sell the same 10 in Europe. Or it might be across marketplace. You sell on Amazon and from your Shopify site and from Walmart or other types of platforms. And then the last thing is, the larger your earnings, generally, the more that it's easier for a buyer to value a particular business. So I encourage everybody, when you're thinking about exit, to start tracking your numbers and understand these are the metrics that buyers want to see that make them valuable. But what you might not be aware of is that buyers are actually looking at some more things that are what I call qualitative, not just quantitative. So let's talk about those next. What makes you valuable to a buyer on a strategic level is different than the financial level. The way that I think about it is the metrics that I showed before is the dashboard of the car. It shows you how fast you're going. It shows you how well you're traveling, but it doesn't show you the engine of the car, which is the input that is creating that output. These 6 things, which we talk about again in the exit ticket program in far more detail, are the strategic things that make you valuable to a buyer. In order to be sellable at the top of the pyramid, the first thing that you have to recognize is that you need to be profitable. Okay. Now, when you're just starting out and you're trying to launch products and get them ranked on the platforms, those types of things, you probably won't have the profitability that you want, but you want to focus on only launching products that will eventually become profitable once you get them to scale. The next thing that you need to do is you need to show the buyer that that's repeatable. that you weren't like a one-hit wonder. I come from the music of the 80s, and you didn't just get lucky, but that you've got a proven system in a brand, in a niche that helps show the buyer that profitability, there's many more products that you can launch. They'll go back out to that audience, and lo and behold, you've now proven that you're profitable and repeatable. And to a certain level, you're scalable. Now, scalable will be different based on how much you want to exit for. So if I want to exit for $50 million, I better be in a niche that's big enough to be scalable to that level. But if I want to exit for $2 or $3 million, which is a very good goal in and of itself, you might be in a different type of a niche. The next thing is you want to show that you're diversifiable, which means that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. And then the last thing is that you're defensible. And the famous adage around this is that you have some level of a moat around your business. Now, it might not be patents, although those would be great. It might be subscribe and save. Or it might be that your business is defensible because you can actually produce products cheaper than your competitors with higher quality. Whatever it happens to be, the key part is while you're building your business, think about making it defendable, not just profitable. So you put all of these 6 things together and you have the engine of the car that drives the value to a buyer. So let's just take a step back and recap a bit. We've understood that the first thing that you need to do is recognize that more than half your money is going to come when you exit. The second thing we've realized is that you're going to have to know your numbers in order to be able to exit, and you're going to need to set your goal in terms of how many products you want to launch in order to reach your goal. And then you're going to recognize that you have to understand your buyer just as how you understand your customers, and you're going to want to focus on the things that makes you valuable to a buyer. Once you've done that, you've got what I would refer to as the foundation of a great exit strategy. The next thing that we need to do then is to think about how do we scale your business before you exit? And we do something called addressing your bottlenecks. There's generally 3 bottlenecks that I've found in all of the businesses that we have helped exit. Number 1 is they have a bottleneck of team. No matter how much cash you're making and how much you're growing, eventually, if you're starting out right now as a solopreneur, you have to figure out how to hire, train, and incentivize other people to be a part of your team in order to help you scale. Now, team doesn't mean that you have to go build a 50-person company. You may decide that your goal is to exit for $3 million and you're going to be able to do it with yourself and 3 or 4 VAs in a couple of key areas. But whatever it is, you're going to need to get yourself out of the low dollar activities and into the higher dollar activities, such as product innovation, product launching, and other types of things that drive the value of the business. The next bottleneck that people often run into is capital. So you're going to want to focus on a capital strategy. And again, this is provided in module 4 in the exit ticket program. How do I raise capital for my business in a smart way so that I'm raising it to accelerate the growth of the business, but I'm mitigating any of the risk that I can in terms of taking on too much debt or taking on equity partners? And how do I raise capital right? The way that I like to think about raising capital is that virtually every business that is going to properly scale toward an exit is going to need to, at some point, figure out how to raise capital, because you're always investing in the business in inventory. And so it's going to take some capital in order to properly scale your business. And then the third thing is, how do you continue to build your competencies in the business? And that might start out with picking products, but it'll eventually get into supply chain and logistics. It'll get into other operational things about the business. Here's the key point. Before you exit your business, you want to feel that you've addressed a lot of the bottlenecks in your team, in your capital, and in your competency, because otherwise you're leaving money on the table. I see oftentimes, frankly, too often, people that can't raise capital for their business, they'll exit their business too soon to a buyer. The buyer will put another $500,000 into the business that the seller could have done themselves if they'd had a good capital strategy. They'll double or triple the size of the business, and guess who got the big money payday on that particular business? You're right, it was the buyer rather than you. So by focusing on addressing your bottlenecks before you exit, you get the best chance of exiting for what I call a premium valuation. Okay, so you've now figured out that in order to get the best value for your company, you're going to need to address your bottlenecks. What do you do next? Well, you start to think about when is the right time to what I call time my jump. Okay, no matter when you're growing your business, you're eventually going to want to think about when's the right time to exit. I like to always say there's two times that you can exit a business. One is when it's going well, and two, when it's not going well and there's nobody to buy it. And that brings you back to number one. You're going to need to think about exiting your business while it's going well. So when is that? Well, let's take a look at this graph. The first thing I want you to take away from this is that you want to start your exit strategy planning right when you build your business. I'll give you a great example. Maybe you want to exit a business for $10 million, but you're in the narrowest of the narrowest niches, and that there, even if you got everybody to buy your particular product, it would only be worth $2 million. You need to focus on what is my exit strategy literally before you start picking your first products. Now, for many of you that are already in business, you might say, well, wait a minute, I didn't start then. And my answer is, well, you should have started yesterday, but why not start today? But then when you actually want to go through the exit process, for most people, it's going to take 6 months, 9 months, maybe even a year to 18 months if you're a larger exit. And so you need to start the process while you're still in growth mode. If you look at this curve, the business is still growing. You start the process and you actually exit before the peak of the business. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to leave some upside for the buyer to continue to believe that the business is going to grow. If you get up here to the top and you're starting to plateau the business, if something's been going up for a while and then it starts to flatten out, what's the natural thing that a buyer is going to conclude? You're exactly right. They're going to conclude, I'm going to buy it and it's going to start to decline. And once a business is in decline, it's oftentimes too late to sell the business at all, or you'll have to do it as what I refer to as a fire sale. So when you're thinking about your exit strategy planning, let's go right back to that first thing where we're going to launch and have a business worth $1.7 million within 3 years. Somewhere around 18 months to 2 years, you're going to want to start thinking about, I better start getting ready for my exit so that I'm planning it enough in ahead so that I leave some growth in for the buyer and I get a premium multiple for my business. Okay. So we've now removed the bottlenecks and we've learned that we need to time our jump and start earlier than we probably thought of. What's the next thing? Now, this is going to be the most detailed slide that I'm going to go through in the whole presentation today. But I think it's absolutely critical to show you the depth at which you need to think about your business from an exit perspective. I call it doing an eyes wide open exit. And there's 3 things that are going to start to happen when you're starting to think about an exit. The first thing you have to think about are what I call exit lanes. Most people think you're going to grow your business, you're going to run it for 3 years, somebody's going to pay you $5 million on a Tuesday, you're no longer going to work on a Wednesday, you're going to go off to the beach, and you're going to say to the buyer, I really don't care what happens to the business because I'm out. Now, well, that would be nice. The reality is 100% cash exit and you get to leave the next day just isn't practical. And frankly, it's not even logical because that buyer is probably not your best buyer. More likely, you're going to be in one of these other types of lanes that we go through in the program, and you're going to need to be thinking about something called earnouts or stabilization payments, or what we like to oftentimes structure rolled equity payments. And so the important point is you're going to want to have someone help educate you on the different types of transactions. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to think about what are called transaction levers. And did you know there's actually 11 different ways that you can get paid when you exit your business? So in order for us, frankly, to help negotiate the best deal for you, we try and pull down with a buyer on all of those levers and see which ones they're most amenable to. You obviously want some cash up front, but you may have to decide to take some payments on an earnout, and you may decide to take some payments as rolled equity. And the simplest way to think about rolled equity without getting into too many details is just you may decide to sell 70% of your business now and the remaining 30% in 2 years. And then you also want to make sure that you're getting paid for your inventory, or you're getting paid for the net working capital that you have built up in the business. Here's the important point. It's not important that you understand all of these concepts today, but by studying them well before you decide to exit, you'll know what type of an exit you're building toward, and you'll start to become an expert in understanding how buyers are going to think about your exit. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to understand the different growth scenarios, or what I call lifts in your business: the worst case, the base case, and the best case. Because you might find that the right buyer for your business is somebody who's going to come in and they're going to buy the majority of the business today. They're going to put a bunch more money into it, and then you're going to be able to sell the remaining part of it in a year or two. Or you might decide that the best buyer for you is to exit 90% of the business today, have 10% out there if it goes well. The important point is that it's not one size fits all, and you don't want to think that 100% exit is always the best answer. So now we understand what the different types of transaction types are. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Why you need to study your exit is because more than half the money that you ever get is going to come when you decide to exit your business. Next, you need to understand that in order for that payday event to happen, you're going to need to start now and strategically plan your exit from day one. Or, said differently, if you implement all of the things that you learned at this summit you go to operationally and in the Freedom Ticket course and all of these types of things, but you don't do the last step, you're going to end up leaving more than 50 cents of every dollar on the table. Think about that. More than half of every dollar. That would be like saying you're in a 70% tax bracket, right? Don't shy away from learning how to exit. Lean in more. And I'd like to end with a visualization that I'd like everybody here to start thinking about for your own business. It's August 1st. Maybe it's 2024, 2025, or 2027, or 2028. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and something is going to happen to you that I've had happen to me when I first exited my business, and it's happened to dozens and dozens and dozens of people that we've helped in this industry exit as well. There's going to be a wire transfer that comes across, and it's going to be for an amount that now makes you financially free. My question for you today is, what's the date and what do you want that number to be? And once you've locked that in your mind, and imagine that more than Prime Day, more than Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or all of those other paydays put together, millions of dollars is getting wired into your account. You get to control your destiny for the rest of your life because you're financially free. When do you want that to happen? And start planning from day one in order to make it happen. And that's why you should start taking the exit ticket journey today. Sign up now. Go to the section in Helium 10 that allows you to go through step by step the most advanced content available on how to exit your e-commerce business. And I promise you, you will learn the steps and the skills to take advantage of getting the biggest payday from your e-commerce business. Thanks a lot for listening. My name is Scott Dietz. I'm here to help you all the way through the journey, and I hope that we get you a life-changing exit as well. Thank you.